Hello everyone around the world. Welcome. Bienvenidos, que quiero irte, to Coloring My Way Across the Globe. I'm your host, Christian Battistini, color consultant, artist, language learner, and world traveler. Join me each week as I chronicle the most colorful people, places, and experiences I encounter off the beaten path, both near and far. So, let's go. Vámonos, que pame. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Coloring My Way Across the Globe. I'm your host, Christian Battistini. So happy to have you joining me today. I have a very special guest. Well, all of my guests are special, but this particular guest is very, very, very special. I've known him for a total of 23 years now. This young man who's my guest is a mechanical engineering major wrapping up his studies at West Texas A&M University in Canyon, Texas, and he and I just returned from an international trip to Japan. So, without further ado, I will introduce my guest, Christian Battistini, who also happens to be my son. Welcome to the show.
Hi guys, my name's Christian. As my mom said before, I am a mechanical engineering student at West Texas A&M University in Canyon, Texas, and we're here to talk about Japan and just how much fun we had there and a lot of the things that we learned, from traveling with each other and in such a foreign place to us.
And for my guests, for my listeners, you will hear me just occasionally call Christian brother. It's just a nickname I have for him. I have a total of 3 kids, and he's got 2 younger sisters. And so when he was little, we just started calling him brother. So I either will call him Christian or brother during the interview. But I thought it would be very interesting to bring in Christian because this was his first international trip, and it was our first mom-son trip around the world, or period. And I have promised all 3 of my kids a trip wherever they want to go. And so Christian and I began planning this trip over a year ago, and we had some help from Rob Dyer of The Real Japan. Rob is another guest on the podcast. You'll hear from him later. But so, Christian, I think my audience would like to know, what made you choose Japan?
So I've always been fascinated with the culture, from the bullet train to just how condensed their cities are, like architecturally speaking, and like I said, it's just a cool culture, cool people, cool language. Everything was just very fascinating to me personally. And so when you came to me and asked me where I would want to go for a trip with you, I said Japan. So that was where I chose.
And I wasn't really surprised because, growing up you used to watch a lot of anime. And Naruto, right. and it didn't surprise me, but I knew nothing about Japan. Neither of us really understood. We don't know the language.
Well, of course not. But I think another thing for me was there was just things in my childhood that originated in Japan, like Pokemon or origami, or just things that were Americanized but originated in Japan, and I just wanted to see where all those things come from, like the land that it came from,
Well, and prior to this podcast episode, you and I did a lot of preparation, and we went through several questions. We even kind of remapped our itinerary. So we have a lot to discuss today. So let's dive right in. Yeah. And I want to ask you, first of all, bullet train, underrated or overrated?
Definitely underrated. It definitely, when I was doing research, was not talked about enough, but there's only so much you can say because it's really just a experience it for yourself kind of thing. Once I got on the bullet train and actually experienced it, it's called the Shinkansen, and it was seriously so cool. As an engineer and someone who is already fascinated with trains, it was just such a cool experience.
Well, and for those people who've not been to Japan or heard of the bullet train, tell everyone how fast the bullet train was going when we were on it.
I'm actually not sure, but I mean, I know it was fast. And it was such a slight. It was like an acceleration that you don't even feel, and that was the coolest part to me, because in a normal train you can kind of feel the tracks, you can kind of feel the vibrations of the tracks and the train and all that stuff, right? In a normal train, but in a Shinkansen, in a bullet train, you don't really feel that. and it's just a really slight acceleration, and it's so cool. Like, it's just such a cool feat of engineering.
And I remember too, before we even got on the bullet train, and a lot of the longer train routes we took, there were these little, I'm going to call them Japanese Happy Meals, but they're not Happy Meals. They're those little Ichiban, little boxed meals in the bento boxes that it was like, and it was all fresh. It was sushi and rice and all this other stuff. So we got to eat that. We got to take that on the train. But I do remember that at one point on the bullet train, it didn't seem like it was going that fast until I looked out of the window.
Right.
And that's when I realized, oh my word, we're going.
That's when you kind of realize, because you, like I said, you don't physically feel it. When you kind of look at everything and relatively like how everything's kind of going, it's like, dang, like
it was fast.
Like, we're going fast.
Okay, so speaking of trains, let's talk about the rail and the transportation system. And I think this is where you and I experienced a lot of frustration because I don't speak the Japanese language. I don't have a great sense of direction.
Right.
And this is where I think you and your engineering capabilities and your understanding of just orientation and maps and such. What did you think of the train system, and how did you navigate it? Because I know I had a hard time with it.
Right. Well, I know that whenever I don't really understand something, I really want to learn it, like, as fast as possible. I really want to just, like, do a bunch of research on it and figure it out right then and there. And so that's what kind of happened when we first got there. I just didn't really understand what was going on. I was kind of confused because it is confusing. It's a confusing system overall, but I think a multitude of like apps, some maps that we had on hand, and just kind of reading the maps that are kind of on the station and knowing exactly where you're going from point A to B helped me, I guess, learn. It just kind of helped me learn.
Well, and this is what I'll say. I wish I would have done prior to the trip. And you don't know until you experience this. And hindsight is 20/20. I wish that I would have studied the maps myself. And we already knew what cities we would be in. We had planned our route very well in advance. I just wish that I would have taken the time to study the maps a little bit better. It would have been less overwhelming for me.
It's just there's just so much to look at when you're looking at a Japanese railroad map that it kind of freaks you out a bit if you don't know what you're looking at, and again, like, overwhelms you to, especially coming from a person that like doesn't use trains like that. We don't use.
We just drive everywhere.
Right, we just drive everywhere as Texans. Like, we don't use the trains, and they use the train every day. So it's kind of those railway systems are built for those people. Like,
that's right. They're used to it. It's their everyday life. Yeah. Okay, so I thought what our listeners would like is for us to do a rundown and go over our itinerary and some of the highlights from each city. So we were in Japan, you guys, for 2 weeks straight. In the latter part of May, was it the second half of May or the first half? I can't quite remember.
I want to say, because I know that I get out of school early May, so it was probably later May, later May.
Later in May. Okay, so we were there for 2 weeks. We had our map routed. So let's talk about the first place. We were in Tokyo. We flew in and we were in Tokyo for 3 days. And so I want to talk about some of our favorite activities.
The first day?
The first couple days.
Right. Okay, so we fly in, and I think even the flight was an experience in and of itself, because the first leg of the flight, we flew on an airline called EVA, I think.
Yes, EVA.
EVA, and that was different. Like, that was definitely kind of dipping our toes into this foreign world that we haven't even experienced or seen yet, and it was a cool kind of nudge, if you will, to like the idea of how the trip was going to be, because it's definitely a different culture in EVA. They're speaking different languages. I think on our first flight they were speaking Mandarin because we were going to Taiwan, and then once we got to Taiwan, that was also like, whoa, like, this is so different, this is so foreign.
Well, we were stressed out when we got to Taiwan.
We were stressed out.
We had a connecting flight that we almost missed.
I remember that. We had a connecting flight, and as soon as we got there, the line for checking in. Was it checking in?
No, it was literally just our connection. There was a line to connect to the next flight.
Yeah, well, that's what we thought, right? But then we skipped the line, and then we realized there's something, right?
I don't know, but we barely made it in time.
We literally, if we didn't talk to this one particular employee,
that one agent
of Eva, we wouldn't have made it, actually. Because I remember, I was thinking about this the other day. We were like, help us, like, we don't know where to go. He literally walked us through TSA because he knew that we had to be on the flight.
He walked us to the shuttle bus that took us to the plane.
Shuttle bus, and as soon as we got on the shuttle bus, they closed the door and they went to the plane. Mm-hmm. Like, we almost missed that, which is, I just don't even know what we would have done.
Well, we would have cried. I would have been really crying.
Yeah, I think we would have
been a nightmare.
Super stressed.
Okay, so let's talk about our first few days in Tokyo. We stayed in a neighborhood. What was the name of that neighborhood? Do you remember?
Napori. Wait, can we talk about, before we talk about Napori, I actually kind of want to talk about how we got to, what station was it in Tokyo? Do you remember?
Was it the udon? No. Those are the noodles. I'm sorry, brother. I don't remember. Ueno.
No, that's a city. Man, I really wish I knew. I can't. I'm just kind of. Fun.
Well, I know we stayed in Napori.
Well, we did, but the airport is in. And I don't even know how I'm blanking on this. The airport is in Tokyo. I want to say Eastern Tokyo. So
right, but we definitely had to take like a 30 minute train.
We get there, and we knew that we were going to be charged for service if we just used normal AT&T, LTE or whatever. So we went and got pocket Wi-Fi, and we didn't know that they changed the location of the kiosk to like the other side of the airport. And of course everything's in a different language, right? So we're trying to ask like the front desk, like, hey, can you show us where this is? Like, we're pointing to a piece of paper with the map of the airport where the thing was supposed to be, but
where the kiosk was supposed to be.
And we didn't know this at the time. And then we run into, and we're freaking out. We're trying to, we can't even find the pocket Wi-Fi. We just got there, we can't even figure this out, right? So we're freaking out. And this Australian lady approaches us, or I think she might have been New Zealand, I don't know, from New Zealand. She approaches us and she says, hey, would you guys mind doing an interview? And we were like, well, we're kind of freaking out. We don't know where to go from here.
We've just arrived. We're just tourists.
X, Y, and Z. Like, we don't understand. Like, we're kind of freaking out. And this lady's like, okay, well, calm down. Just do this interview with us, and, we'll show you where to go. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, so we kind of have to do this interview. And it was really weird. It was like we're being interviewed for the news, or like some kind of. It was
some podcast or some little TV video series where they were interviewing
TV show.
Tourists, and what they wanted to know was what attracted us to Japan.
Right.
You're listening to Coloring My Way Across the Globe with Lauren Battistini. For more information, check out lfbcolor.com.
Why we were here, what languages we spoke, I think, and so that was our first experiences as soon as we landed in Tokyo. Was we were interviewed.
And my mom doesn't really do well with hiding her stress, and I'm sure that if we were to watch the video, like you could just tell that my mom was so stressed.
No,
out.
you couldn't.
Well, you definitely could. And I was too. I was like freaking out. Like, what are we doing right now? What is this interview?
We need to be finding our pocket Wi-Fi.
We need to be finding, we need to go. Because I think we were in a rush to get to the Airbnb.
To our Airbnb, yeah.
Or you know what? We didn't want the JR pass to close. We knew that the line was going to be closed.
So let's back up for our listeners who don't know all. Okay, so first of all, pocket Wi-Fi, it's basically so that when you're traveling internationally, when you're in Japan, it's a very economical way for you basically just to have internet coverage at all times, so you don't have to pay for exorbitant international charges.
Right, exactly.
Now, we were in a hurry, like Christian says, to go to get our JR passes. The JR pass is literally the Japan Railways pass that you want to purchase, because it gives you almost unlimited access to trains all around the country.
Honestly,
you have to do it.
They are genius for that. I personally love JR Pass. I can't remember what the other one's called. Hated it. I love JR. Like whenever I saw the JR on like a,
we knew we were going to be okay.
I was like, yes, thank gosh. I don't want to have to buy like another ticket just to go to this one place.
Okay, so first city, we flew into Tokyo.
So
we got settled at the Airbnb and
in Ueno, but that was, we had trouble finding that. We took the train from the airport, and I just really wish, was it? Dude, I don't know how I don't remember it. It started with an N. I know it started with an N.
I don't know, but let's talk about the things that we enjoyed while we were in.
So, well, what is there to talk about? I mean,
okay, so we got to go see the Tokyo skyline.
I don't think so. Oh wait, yeah, we did. We did.
I'm looking at my notes, and you guys, I'm having to refer to our notes because Christian and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago before this interview where we went and recapped the trip. So brother, we went to, we did see the Tokyo skyline. We took some big elevator all the way up some tower. Mm-hmm. We've got tons of pictures of that, and we did that right around sunset.
Was that the first day?
No, it was the second day, I think. We also saw the Buddhist wedding.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so let's backtrack. Mm-hmm. Because the first day we get there, we get to Napoli. And we get to Napoli, we find our Airbnb, and we kind of realize how small it is.
It was very small. It was the size of some people's closets.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of was familiar with this idea and this concept. Because the Japanese, they like to consolidate space.
Oh, they're excellent.
And they're great at it, actually. And this Airbnb kind of reflected that idea of everything had its spot, like the dryer, the washer and the sink and all that, but it didn't take any more space than it needed to.
That's right. And it was tiny, but it was very clean,
right.
And it served its purpose, for sure.
And so that night we got gas station food, and then we kind of just went to bed that night because I think we were really tired.
Yep.
We were mentally drained. But the next morning we kind of had a rude awakening a little bit because around I don't even think it was
about
5 a.m.
It was 5. It was around 5 in the morning. It was very early.
It was 6 a.m. and I get abruptly woken up by my phone kind of doing the Amber Alert noise. And if anyone's familiar with the Amber Alert noise, it's kind of like a long, high-pitched tone that just kind of keeps going and then stops and then keeps going and stops. And it's kind of meant to like wake you up from whatever you're doing and kind of like get your attention because something like an emergency is happening, basically. And all we hear is the Amber Alert noise, the Amber Alert tone, and then earthquake, and I immediately wake up. I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, what's going on? And I really didn't have time to think though, because as soon as I thought, like, what the heck, the Airbnb starts to shake.
Well, but before it started shaking, I thought you were playing a practical joke on me because you guys, my son is a practical joker, and I thought he had set his phone to some type of alert as a joke. And I said, what are you doing, brother? What's going on? And then we felt the building shake. So we experienced, within 24 hours of arriving to Japan, we experienced our first earthquake. Thankfully,
it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't anything that's going to topple over the buildings. I'm pretty sure that the architectural structure is built for this kind of earthquake that's like minuscule, you know, and honestly, it was really cool though, like to experience that, like the first morning.
Yeah, it was we really had a lot of action just 24 hours into the trip. Okay, so let's do a rundown. People want to know what we did in each of these cities.
Right. So from May 9th to 12th, that's 3 days, we were in Tokyo, and we saw multiple parts of Tokyo. So, like I said, we got to Napoli, and that kind of happened.
The earthquake.
Mm-hmm. And so we did some research that day and decided that we were going to do a few things. Golden Guy, of course, is kind of a popular name when you're talking about Tokyo, so that's kind of something that we wanted to at least see. I don't think that we could... There was something going on that night that we wanted to do, and I don't think that we were up for bar hopping in Golden Guy.
But tell our listeners what that place is known for.
Oh, sure. Okay, sorry. Golden Guy is a very... it's nightlife for for American tourists, or I guess maybe not American tourists, but just tourists in general, and Japanese people to kind of just mingle. As far as like I know, and it's really cool. It's a bunch of small little bars put into one really big place, and it has like this really great energy to it. There's a lot of art that's there, and just
before you go on, being from New Orleans, it somehow, and I know we were there during the daytime, but just it reminded me of the eclecticism of New Orleans. It reminded me a little bit of the French Quarter, but a tamer version of the French Quarter, right? There was something very vibrant and colorful and just lively about it.
Right.
Okay, so Golden Guy. What else did we do?
Golden Guy that day, and then we went and saw the Shinjuku Garden, which was very, very peaceful. It's the kind of place that the elderly are walking around, and everyone's kind of just being quiet and minding their own business.
It was a contemplative place. Like people were there to just sit and meditate and take a break.
For sure.
And it was very quiet.
No one was being loud at all. It was
very peaceful.
Very quiet. Lots of cool plant life there. I noticed. That was my first time ever really noticing that there was like bonsai trees and different kind of species of trees that I'd never seen before.
Yep.
Flowers. It was very pretty, and honestly, it was a really cool experience, I would say. And then after that, we kind of wanted to go see a Buddhist temple, right? Is that my understanding?
Yes.
And we went to this Buddhist temple, and we accidentally ran into a wedding that was going on, and we kind of just sat there for like 5 minutes just watching.
Well, and we wanted to be reverent about it, right? Because the couple was inside of the little temple area, the innermost part, and people were walking around kind of on the outskirts. So we were able to look in from a distance. We were quiet about it, but it was a beautiful
really
sight to see.
But it was definitely something that it's just honestly the way I could describe it is just not like your conventional American wedding, Not at all. But it was so cool.
It was very beautiful,
really cool,
and very reserved, and very. I'm not finding the word right now. It was a meaningful experience just to witness.
So cool though, so
just
cool.
to be an onlooker.
And I feel like as a tourist, like when do tourists really even see that? I feel like there's just the circumstances that we kind of ran into it. It just felt kind of lucky to do so.
And we were fortunate to see that. Definitely fortunate to see that. Okay.
Let's see. So, and then the next day, sorry, that night we went and saw the Tokyo skyline, like we had mentioned before. Yes. And that was really cool because seeing Tokyo, I mean, this vibrant, colorful city, huge, right? From like an eagle eye perspective, it was just so therapeutic to me, at least. Like after all this chaos, after all this running around, doing all this, it was like, wow, like this is just so peaceful, like this is very cool.
I felt so fortunate to be there in that moment, and I remember snapping a lot of beautiful pictures, some of which I think I'll be utilizing for my next travel illustration art campaign. Okay, so we've got several other cities to cover. So let's pick one more thing we did in Tokyo before we move to our next destination.
So Tokyo, we also went to, I'm blanking on the mall where the giant Gundam robot is. But basically, I wanted to go and see, get some Gundam models, just to bring back home and build, so I could say I got them in Japan.
And what's Gundam for those listeners?
Gundam is a plastic model building kit that is a robot that you assemble.
And I thought it was...
It's kind of like a model car, except it's a robot.
It reminded me of Legos, but cooler than Legos and more intricate than Legos. And I saw grown men in the store that we went to, and they were shopping for their own Gundam sets. It was cute. I thought it was really cute.
Okay, so the next city that we saw was Kanazawa. And Kanazawa was definitely a change of pace, because Kanazawa how do I even put
It's a
this?
walkable community,
Yeah,
first of all.
exactly.
And even if you were to take the bus, it just goes in one basic
Giant
route.
loop, yeah.
A big giant loop. And that was, of all the places we visited, that tops, I think, my favorite towns.
Really?
I think so.
Well, why? Like, why was that your favorite?
Okay, so what I loved about it was, first of all, our Airbnb was beautiful. We stayed in this little home, and the Airbnb host was so hospitable, so friendly, very helpful to us. And everything was, like I said, was very walkable. And we also got to go down the street from the Airbnb to an original geisha house that had been converted essentially into somewhat of a museum. But within the geisha house, there was a little area where people could sit and be served tea and little snacks. Remember when we sat there? And we just got a lot of good pictures.
That was kind of like a spiritual experience, honestly.
Did you feel that way?
For sure. Because it was like quiet. There were bells that they were ringing. It was super zen. I don't want to say zen, but it was really zen.
Well, and the funny thing about zen is, you and I I wouldn't call us very zen-like people. We're not very zen. We're loud, and that's another thing. Let's stop for just a second and talk about how funny this is. You and I had this pep talk with each other, or before we ever left, and said, okay, we're loud. We're Italian, Latino kind of people. We're very loud and we're boisterous. And you and I, let's be honest, brother, we kind of fight a lot. We love each other, you guys, but we also fight a lot. And we're just loud. And we had said to each other, okay, we're going to Japan. The culture there is more reserved. They're quiet. They're not going to be fighting in front of anyone. They want to save face. We need to follow suit. Right, yeah, we need to conform. We need to be very quiet and reserved and be a little more zen-like. Do you think that on this trip we really pulled that off or not?
Oh, yeah. I think I did at least. I think I did at least.
You think you were calm and zen on the trip?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just don't know.
Maybe you don't agree with me, but I really thought I was.
Okay.
But I think the one thing that really stood out to me about Kanazawa was a night that it was raining. We originally planned on going to some kind of ramen bar that was really famous in the city. Closed that night. We didn't know. It didn't say it online, but it was closed that night. Down the street and we were hungry. We were really, really hungry. And we thought that we weren't going to eat that night because we just couldn't find anything open. But then we found this one bar that was open. And we went. And I think that was probably my favorite experience of all Japan.
Well,
because
it was a family-owned bar/restaurant.
But super small, like
very small.
You sit down in a bar and you're ordering food and drinks, and they're right in front of you. They're cooking the food right in front of you, and they're talking to you as well as they're doing it. Obviously, we didn't speak the same language, but Google Translate did help us a lot in that situation, in that scenario. And we ended up making friends with this older gentleman that ended up buying us, I think, sake and...
Oh, yeah. They were so... He
bought
was
us gyoza and...
Yeah, they bought us a few appetizers and a couple of drinks, and they're so happy to see us there, and they... Right. So what did they say as soon as they found out we were from Texas?
They loved the Rockets. They were like, we love the Rockets. We love the Rockets. And we kind of asked, like, had they been to America prior? And they said, I think one of them said no, and then one of them motion that he was pressing on the casino machines, hinting at that he had been to Las Vegas once.
Yeah, we had to basically to communicate with people sometimes do some type of version of charades for us to make our points known. Okay, anything else about Kanazawa?
There were some cool pancakes that we had. They were very fluffy.
Oh yeah, those fluffy pancakes. But also, don't forget, didn't we go to a castle?
Yeah, we went to the Kanazawa Castle. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was really cool.
And so, brother, what you and I are going to do for my viewers is we're going to compile some of our best pictures and imagery into some kind of slideshow or something that I either include as an addendum to this podcast or I make a whole blog post. Sure. But we need to include some of the photography and give people kind of a little bit of a, I'm going to say, condensed itinerary of what we did. Oh, yeah. Okay, where did we go after Kanazawa? Help me remember.
After Kanazawa, we went to Kyoto. And if I'm being honest, Kyoto just was not my favorite.
I mean, we loved it.
We did, but like I said, if I'm being honest, it wasn't my favorite, just personally. I think that if I had gotten to see more, because we were only there for a day and a half, we weren't there.
We were there for 3 days.
No, we were there for 2 days.
In Kyoto?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is what I think happened, and you may not feel this way, or maybe you do. I feel that Kyoto, we were rushed by the time we got to Kyoto, and Kyoto was a whole different pace than Kanazawa. So we had come from this relaxed, calm, walkable community going straight into Kyoto, and I don't think we had enough time in Kyoto. I think we should have probably dedicated maybe 5 days.
Yeah, like I should have said maybe that it's a really cool city. It's really cool, but honestly, we just didn't have time. We just didn't have time.
But we had fun everywhere we went. So what are your highlights from Kyoto?
For sure,
things that we did. What did we do in Kyoto that you really did like, though?
10,000 Gates at night is definitely a spectacle to go see.
It's huge...
called Fushimi, I think.
Okay.
Traditionally, and it was just so cool. So cool.
Why is it called 10,000? Tell everyone why it's called 10,000.
I believe because there's 10,000 gates.
But it's a gigantic Buddhist shrine temple area, yes?
Is it? I honestly don't remember.
Because we went at nighttime. We did take a lot of beautiful photos.
Right. We kind of went at nighttime. We kind of rushed through everything and just went to the gates. So maybe that's why I'm kind of not remembering that it was.
And also, hey, you guys, those of you listening, we covered so much territory over a 2-week period that some of our details are a little bit jumbled together, even though we tried to take notes before the conversation. So forgive us if we're getting a few details just a little bit.
We were also jet lagged, I think. And so that's why it's kind of hard to really place where we were at certain times because we were just so tired. And basically going on fumes, a lot of these places.
Yes, we were.
Anyway, we went and saw the bamboo forest.
No, that was
cool.
Okay, so the bamboo forest, we'll definitely have to share photos of that. The bamboo grows so high, you guys, all just so high up into the sky. And there was also some live music going on, some acoustic drums.
He was playing I forget what it was called. Pan drum.
Yes. That was beautiful. That was a great sight to see, and it was completely worth the trip to get there. We got a lot of great photography from that.
One thing I will say is that if you are going to go to the bamboo forest, make sure that you're going when you know no one else is going to go. And same with the 10,000 Gates. I know they're popular spots, and there's going to be a lot of people, but I kind of just wish that there was no one when we went to both of those places because the amount of people kind of, I don't want to say ruins it, but it kind of does.
Well, it did take the experience slightly because we felt like we maybe had to rush through a little bit, and it was just super packed.
Yeah,
I think in retrospect, especially the bamboo forest, if we had gotten up earlier. You are listening to Coloring My Way Across the Globe. Stories of the most colorful people, places, and experiences off the beaten path, both near and far. As hosted by myself, Lauren Battistini. Each week, I'll be interviewing color professionals, artists, world travelers, language learning experts, digital nomads, other entrepreneurs, creative professionals, visionaries. There's something here for everyone interested in the world around them. Keep listening, there's more to follow. If we had gotten up earlier and we had gone right when it opened.
Right. So the next place that we went to from Kyoto was Kinosaki Onsen.
Okay, that was an amazing place.
That was really cool. It's like this really small town in the mountains. They've got, the stores are only open from like literally not even kidding, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And like the 7-Eleven was open. I don't even know.
Well, they just have a different dining schedule.
Oh, yeah.
But okay, so but let's
because that's where the actual like people of Japan go to relax. Like that's where they go and to vacate.
So let's talk about Kinosaki Onsen. The onsen part refers to these bathhouses. This is a very traditional Japanese concept of going to a bathhouse. There is one for men and there's one for women. But in Kinosaki Onsen, there are multiple bathhouses. In fact, we were able to get a pass, to pay for a day pass, that gave us access to any of the bathhouses. That is its own cultural experience. And
if you're in that town, you have to go to the onsen if you want to, like, if you want to get clean.
And
They don't have showers in the hotels. Like it's just the onsen.
Well, you and I stayed in a traditional ryokan,
Right.
Japanese guest house.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bathhouses, that again, something interesting, something that might make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. You basically do disrobe in front of everybody, and it's interesting. I'll speak from a women's perspective here about the onsens. So the bathhouse, you go in, and there's a locker area where you disrobe, but then you have to go into the sauna area, the pool area, the spring area. They're hot springs. It's enclosed. You go in there. You have no clothes on whatsoever. But around the perimeter are these little bathing stations, and you are expected to rinse off very thoroughly, soap and water and everything, before you enter these springs. So you've got to spend a few minutes getting yourself all sudsed up and rinsed off before you ever get in there. But when I tell you, for me, once I got over being naked in front of a bunch of people, because it was awkward for me, I'm just a private person, once I got over that initial embarrassment, it was truly relaxing to just be there, and I did sleep so well the nights that I went into the
It really does. It really
the
did
bathhouse.
help, like me sleep well too. Like something about it just kind of takes a lot of your energy out, maybe, or just relaxes you to the point where you're like, I just need to go to sleep right now.
Yep.
I'm so tired.
And then
So cool though. It definitely, again, different, but still cool. It was really cool to experience.
And in terms
something
of
so different.
And in terms of pace of life, there's definitely a slower pace there, and I appreciated that because we had come from Kyoto, which was more hustle bustle.
Right.
Then we went to Kinosaki Onsen, and to me that was a nice respite. We relaxed. We got to walk around. Didn't we go up on
They had
a
like
trolley?
a lift.
Not a trolley, a
They
lift.
had a lift that went all the way to the top of this one particular mountain. Don't really know the name, I forget. But there was this bar at the top where you could get ice cream and beer.
And beer. We had ice cream and beer. You could get other things too, but...
And you just kind of enjoy the view, and that's what we did. Super cool.
I loved that experience. So for me, so far, the two favorite places were Kanazawa and then Kinosaki Onsen. And I think I just liked it because they were calm, sedate, just more traditional towns as opposed to big cities. Okay, where'd we go next?
After that, we went to Osaka. And it was a hotel. I'm pretty sure it wasn't an Airbnb.
It was a hotel.
And we were next to this really big market, and we were at the entrance of it. So we kind of had access to this really big market that had its own like intersections, different shops. I mean, of all kinds of varieties. It was really cool. It was really cool. And
There was a flower market within. There were
Right.
all kinds of food
Right.
stations. There were grocery items you could get, produce,
jewelry,
clothing.
toys, just so many
a little
options
bit of
like
everything.
that. And then then I think the first night we were there in Osaka, we went to Nagai Park, which is an exhibit that only happens at night, and it's basically a light show.
But it's interactive. You can touch some of the installations, and it was very fascinating,
Right.
and I thought it was genius. Very colorful.
Very colorful, yes, and very just I don't even know how to put it. Geometrical.
It was
would be
geometrical. Kind of. It had a kaleidoscope feel to it,
Right.
and
trippy.
definitely trippy, psychedelic-ish. It was a nice evening.
And the next morning we went to Osaka Castle. I don't think we really went inside Osaka Castle.
It was raining that day. We didn't go to get... And you know why we didn't go inside also? Remember, not only was it raining, but again, there were too many people there.
too many. Like, I remember seeing the line and I was just like...
Hey, guys, this is what we recommend, honestly, is any big sites you want to see, and this goes for almost any trip you take, get there early in the morning so you can get the sights seen with not such a large crowd, and then you can go on about the rest of your day going and eat in little restaurants and things or do other sightseeing. But
Well, another thing with Japan in spring and fall, when people know that these are times to go, but like we also went at a time where the travel ban had just been lifted.
Yep.
And so everybody's flocking in, and I think maybe even the next few years, people are gonna be trying to get in and
That's right.
and see Japan.
That's right. And we
But
want.
I'm not really sure when the best time of year would be to go to kind of avoid the tourists and still see.
Well, let me interject for a moment.
Glory.
I'm going to interject for a moment because and put in a plug for our friend Rob. Rob Dyer is the gentleman from therealjapan.com, and he is British. He's married to a Japanese lady, and he is an expert on all things Japan travel. It's what he dedicates his work to right now. And so we did depend on Rob to help us create the shell of an itinerary. And Rob on his website actually has a whole lot of different resources for best times to go to Japan, language learning tools, the ins and outs of different cities, and just a lot of great free resources. So FYI, it's therealjapan.com. And again, those of you who are just listening to my podcast here, I don't have any sponsorships or endorsements. I'm not being paid to mention anyone's name. I really did have a great experience utilizing Rob's services to plan out this trip. So he offers as much or as little help as you need. Okay.
So, a common theme with a lot of the places that we went was they were either not in a big city and we could kind of walk around it and just kind of relax, or it was a big city, we felt like we didn't have enough time, and there was just so much to do that we kind of just did what we could.
But then with
the time that we had.
But in those bigger cities, we're like, oh, we thought to ourselves, we wish we would have had more time.
There was just so many things to do, like, honestly, unlimited things to do. Like, it was kind of overwhelming.
And look, for being there for 2 weeks, we only began to scratch a little bit of the surface of Japan.
The tip of the iceberg.
I mean, we really didn't see as much as we would have liked. And 2 weeks didn't do it justice, right? I mean, we were grateful for the trip.
Right, of course.
But there's so much to see in Japan. It's such a culturally rich, colorful, beautiful, magnificent place.
We didn't get to really see each city for its own beauty. I think what we really got to see was Japan for its beauty. All parts of it.
I agree with you. We got a little small sampling.
We kind of, exactly. We went and sampled any kind of part of Japan you could go to, really. Well, and we got to experience it, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like we did. I think we mapped out the trip well. And where else did we go? Where do we go after?
So where I was getting to is that we were kind of not in Osaka that long as well. Same thing with Kyoto. Just kind of wish we had more time. We didn't, and that's okay. We got to see some really cool stuff. And then we went back to Tokyo for the last 2 days. And I think the last day we were kind of torn because you wanted to go to church and I wanted to go to Mount Fuji. So that's actually what we each individually did. We split up, and I went to Mount Fuji and my mom went to church that day. Mm-hmm. And I think from what my mom tells me, she had a wonderful experience with the people, and it felt just as welcoming as she's used to in the Christian community, I think.
Yeah, I did. It was great. It was a Protestant Christian church I went to, and they welcomed me. Of course, the sermon was completely in Japanese, and the hymns were sung in Japanese, but the melodies were melodies of Christian songs I sing in church. And so I had a spiritual experience, of course, that day, and I felt this great camaraderie despite the language barrier. I felt a great camaraderie with my brothers and sisters in Christ. It was an interesting and beautiful experience, and I was welcomed. After the church service, there was some coffee and tea served, and I got to sit and visit with the whole congregation. It was beautiful. And you got to see Mount Fuji.
I got to see Mount Fuji. So I took a bus to Mount Fuji, and the bus ride I think was like 2 hours. It was pretty long bus ride. But I finally made it to Mount Fuji. I had to walk. No, I took a taxi for the rest of the way to this specific spot where you can see Mount Fuji really well. Unfortunately, the weather just was not agreeing with me, and the clouds were covering.
And you were trying to take
peak.
pictures.
Yeah, I was trying to take pictures. I didn't get any really great pictures of Mount Fuji because the clouds were just in the way, and
too much
that's
cloud
what
cover
sucks.
that day.
But it's okay. It is what it is, and the same way that you had a spiritual experience, I had a spiritual experience. I can't even really explain it on the podcast. Like, it was just one of those moments where you go into a state of wow, just awe. You're just taken away. You're blown away by something so beautiful.
And
that kind of summed up the trip. Obviously, I wish we had more time to where we could just like talk about each and every moment.
Yep.
But
I have to add one thing. But let me let you finish your thought. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I had to say.
We forgot to mention, because this was meaningful to me also,
Right.
There is a place in Tokyo where I was in heaven.
Right.
The Pigment, it's called Pigment Tokyo. And it is the most specific color-based art store I have ever seen in my entire life. I will also include photos of this. This place has the purest pigments of almost any color you can possibly imagine, and all these inks and dyes and paintbrushes, and they do all these workshops, and just walking into the place was such an experience for me. And most of you know, I'm a color expert, I'm a color specialist, and every area of work I've been in the last decades, it has to do with color. And so this was a very wonderful treat. I was able to get some watercolor and watercolor paper, and that experience was beautiful. And one thing I'll say about Japan that I noticed is that in Japanese culture, they pay attention to every single detail, be it packaging on a product, or how food is served, or how things are wrapped. If it's a gift, it's wrapped in a certain way. The way that people dress, they dress impeccably well. The women, their hair and their nails are done. And they dress understated and more conservatively, but they're just so well put together. And I would say that Japan is so very mindful of every little detail, and they turn everything into a thing of beauty, a beautiful experience.
They try really hard, and I think a great example of that is even something as simple as like their candy, Kit Kats, were just, they taste like they just put so much effort into the packaging. They tasted way better, way better, and you could just tell they tried. Really, you can just tell they tried, and everything that they do. And I really respect the Japanese people and the Japanese culture. Very cool.
It was such a wonderful experience, and also going there with you. And so I want to get to the part about the mom-son dynamic here, and this is where I want to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly for a minute. Because you and I, we went on this trip together as a bonding experience. We already have a great relationship, but this was our special trip. Just you and I. The girls weren't with us. Your dad wasn't with us. This is just our fun time. But let's talk about the good, bad, the ugly. You and I have different personalities. We're two different ages. You have all this energy in the world as a 23-year-old, and I'm now 51, and I just can't quite keep your pace. I'm sorry, I can't. So I want to talk about what you felt from your perception was the good, the bad, and the ugly of traveling with me, your mom.
The good, the bad, and the ugly were traveling with my mom. I think that the great parts were just how willing you were to try something new. There was never a moment you were like, heck no, I don't want to do that. No, not like you always wanted, like if there was an idea and I came up with it, or you kind of like, it was always just like something new. Let's try it. I will never not say no, So I thought that was really cool. Maybe the bad part about traveling, which...
With me. Go ahead, say it.
I mean, honestly, there was no bad part for me. I think that every single part was just great. But maybe the bad part was how we just weren't on the same page ever with traveling. I think that...
The railroad.
When it came to the railway systems, she would get very overwhelmed, and I kind of would usually know what to do, but sometimes I didn't, and it would just kind of cause arguments sometimes, and so, it's just natural to fight with your loved ones, and I wouldn't even call it a fight. I think it was just kind of like a disagreement on some things, and then I think
Okay. Well, thank you, brother.
Positive and negatives.
So now it's my turn, right? So the good, bad, the ugly.
Oh, okay.
Of traveling with you. The good part, and this is where I learned a lot, I think, from you, is you wanted to try to pack as many new things in each day as we could. Mm-hmm. And my former way of traveling would have been more to do maybe one thing a day and spend the rest of the time sketching or walking around, just kind of taking a slower pace.
You're listening to Coloring My Way Across the Globe with Lauren Battistini. For more information, check out lfbcolor.com.
But what I realized in traveling with you, and again, it's a good thing, is if you're going to spend all that money to go to a foreign country and you know you only have a 2-week period, squeeze as much as you can in that day. And
I also think that Japan isn't one of those places. It's just not. Well, it depends on where you go, for sure.
But we squeezed in a lot of activity. And my point is, that's what I thought was good about traveling with you, is that you always had ideas about additional things we could do each day, and you wanted for us to try to pack in a lot of different things each day. Okay. Mm-hmm. The bad and the ugly. There wasn't a lot of bad and ugly. You mentioned earlier that I was stressed out, a little bit overwhelmed about the train system. The only thing that I got upset about on this trip was I organized the trip for us, got everything, the itinerary, all the plane tickets, the Airbnbs and the lodging and all that. And so I think I had done so much preliminary work that when we got to Japan, I just wanted to lean on you for you to kind of help us map out what we were going to do each day. And you did it, but I don't like last minute plans the day of. So I would wake up in the morning nervous about, oh gosh, what are we going to do today? How are we going to get there? I was getting myself all wound up. Right. And what would have helped me is if you had planned the night before. But this is where different people have different travel styles and different methods of planning or improvising. And so I got myself worked up into a tizzy most mornings when maybe I didn't need to. But you could have maybe helped with that a little.
Well, I was going to say, I wish I did like way more research. Because there's things in certain places
that we visited,
looking back, where I'm just like, dang, man, I wish we did this instead of this. And for me, I think like particularly was Mount Fuji. I really wish that we hiked Mount Fuji.
Okay, and this is where had you and I thought about it, and we just didn't.
Yeah, right? I didn't even know that you could do it.
Had we thought about this, I really do believe that you and I would have trained a little bit, gotten the right shoes, wore them in a little bit so we knew that they were comfortable, and I think we would have trekked and done Mount Fuji and made that like a 3 or 4 day activity for us. Mm-hmm. If we ever go back there together, that's on our bucket list. I think.
For sure.
I mean, you'll go back there, but like if you and I together go back there, I think
you can also rent out like cabins up there, and like so you hike all the way to the top, and they have food up there and stuff, and you can also, or maybe they don't, I don't know, but you can camp up there, and that sounded. If I go back, I'm doing that for sure. 100% doing that. Anyways.
Okay, so I'm kind of drawing to a close on a few of our questions here.
Okay,
we've got a few more left. Let's see here. I think that in our mom-son relationship, and I'm getting a little sappy here, but in our mom-son relationship, we already were close before the trip, but I know that this trip drew us closer. And I had a feeling that it would, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to take this trip just with you. And, I'll do one with your 2 sisters as well separately. But what are your thoughts on that? What do you feel how did this trip impact us as mother and son? That's the way to ask the question.
I think that, you grow up with your parents kind of having that kid-parent dynamic, right? You're the kid and they're the parent. And you never get to really, really see your parents be vulnerable. But when you're traveling with someone in a new place, both of you are going to just be vulnerable. And I think I got to see my mom become very vulnerable in Japan. And not that that's a bad thing, but it just made me respect her more. And it was almost like, I don't want to say we're on the same level, but it humanized you in a way that I just never had really looked at you, Mm-hmm. And it just made me respect you a lot more. Not that I didn't already, but it was just like, wow, like my mom has these feelings too, and my mom gets scared too, and my mom can freak out just as much as anyone can, on anything.
Well, you knew that before we left for Japan.
Right, but like it was just seeing the rawness of my mom that I had never seen before really changed my perspective for good from my mom.
I appreciate you saying that. I think for me that what this did for our mom-son dynamic is it underscored for me, this trip underscored how close we really are.
Right.
And how despite our little daily microaggressions and little fights we'd have, this was every day. For 14 days, we would have a little scuffle and literally 5 minutes later, brother, we would be laughing over something and celebrating, and we could really vacillate between those two extremes on a daily basis for 2 weeks straight, and just we have so much fun. And I'll tell you that when we flew back into Houston, that I had this just lump in my throat of sadness because I didn't want the time to end.
Yeah.
And I'm getting choked up now thinking about it because that's an experience that just you and I had. Neither of us had been to Japan ever before. And it was such a special time that no one can ever take from us, and we'll always remember it. And it was
it's crazy because I could sit here and tell you all the things that we did and walk you through every single picture, walk you through every single second of the day, but I just can't explain the feeling of it, of every single day, and how a new experience was going to happen. We both just didn't know. We were both clueless on what was going to happen, and it didn't matter, there's just something about it that you can only go so far with explanation.
And I feel...
You kind of just had to be there.
That's right. You kind of had to be there. And I feel very blessed and grateful that we were able to even do this trip. It's an expense. We were able to save up to do this. And I'm glad that we had the opportunity to do this. So I have a couple of questions for you. A couple more before we close.
Okay.
What does it mean to live a colorful life?
What does it mean to live a colorful life? Just in general? Just in general. Okay, well, I think living a colorful life to me is waking up every day and just kind of just doing something different. Just walking off the path just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit. You don't even have to go and do something extreme every day. Just do something, just one thing different every day that maybe makes your life a little bit more colorful. Great example of that is, waking up and saying, hey, well, today I kind of want to go on a bike ride. Okay, go on a bike ride. Or today maybe I want to go and fish. Today maybe I want to go and fish. Okay, go fish. I think just doing something different, that trying new things, trying new experiences is really what makes life colorful to me.
And to add to that, and I just thought of that as you were talking, I noticed a difference and a shift in you when we returned from Japan. I noticed that you began living your life differently and more colorfully. Almost immediately after we came back from Japan, you started getting into rock climbing. You started getting into cooking, taking good care of your health. You started improving your overall just sense of dress, not dressing so much as a college student, but now contemplating your future as a young adult. You've just taken better care of your style and your dress. And so I've noticed you've lived what I would call a more colorful life even since that trip.
Right. Well, I think Japan was such a dramatic new thing, right? It was just like, wow, this is out there. Imagine what else is out there. And so now I'm just so used to trying new things. I know that sounds weird, but I'm just so used to trying new things, like trying out cooking, trying out working out in a new way, rock climbing. I don't even know what else, but just trying new things and not being afraid of trying new things and just taking that leap of faith or whatever. Yeah, I think it makes things a lot more colorful for anyone.
So your idea of a colorful life is waking up every day and trying something new. And I noticed too that with you and me when we get together, because now you don't live in Houston anymore, you're all the way in Canyon near Amarillo, and you're not sure where you're going to land after college, where you're going to get an engineering job. But when you and I do see each other now, we do try new places. We go to little new restaurants, or you suggest new places. Just today you went to a rock climbing gym in town. So I would agree with you that that's one aspect of living the colorful life, is to try new things every day. And it doesn't mean you have to go to a foreign country, like you said.
Watch a new movie. Like, just go and watch a movie, or go and listen to a genre of music that you've never really listened to, or maybe you hate it on. Maybe you'll find something that you thought you would never find.
Let's end on a funny note. Let's recount for me any funny story you can think of from Japan.
Oh my gosh.
That's not going to embarrass me too badly.
Well, so for anyone who doesn't know that is listening, both my mom and I, and it kind of runs in the family, have very, very curly hair.
It very much runs in the family.
And it's not a subtle thing. It's a very in-your-face curly hair, and we love it. We love our hair. Right?
We have afros, basically.
We take care of our hair and everything like that. Well, Japanese people just genetically don't really have curly hair like we do. Or maybe they're just not used to it. Because whenever we were there, we definitely got looks.
And I didn't notice it because I wasn't paying attention.
There was this one particular time that I think we were walking out of a restaurant, or we had just kind of walked in somewhere, and there was this little kid that I think honestly saw both of our hair, and his brain kind of just kind of exploded. Like, he just didn't know what to do, so he started crying and pointing at us, and I'm sure like he was scared, because people are scared of what they don't know, right? So he probably had never seen anything like that.
But wait, didn't you say that we were on? We had just
another instance is where we were in like rural Japan, going somewhere. I can't remember. We were kind of in between a stop or something, at a train station, and I'm talking to my mom, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this like teenager from inside a train car window pointing at my mom, and I'm like, wait, what the heck? Why is he pointing at my mom? And I kind of realized that he was pointing to my mom to show his friends. All of his friends turn around and they start freaking out. They're like, what?
They're laughing.
What?
They were laughing.
They were laughing. And again, I think it was just they had never seen it, and it just overwhelmed them with such emotion that they either cried or laughed.
But what's funny to you and me, right? Our hair is weird and distinct and different and maybe scary over there, but you and I are in Houston, Texas, where it's so multi-global, multi-ethnic. We see everything here. So to us, it's nothing. But it was funny to experience that in Japan.
Right.
But, well, brother, I want to thank you for being here on the podcast. I thought it would be a really nice treat for my listeners to hear a perspective. I talk so much about my international travels, and normally, you guys, you know this, I take trips by myself. So this is the first time that I've really gone to a foreign country with one of my family members like this. And it was a great time. And let's say, for example, you parents out there, maybe you're not in a position right now to do an international trip, but you can just take your child out for a day or two somewhere different. Just to have that bonding time is so special. And I encourage all you parents out there and all you kids out there to do things with your family members like that. It's a treat, and it's an honor, and it's a blessing, and you make lifelong memories that way. So, do you have anything else to add, brother?
I don't think so.
Anything else people should know about Japan before we close here?
It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. It is quite truly another world, and I love it so much, and I really want to go back. I've honestly, after going, it kind of made me want to live there. I kind of wanted to live there for a long time, because it was just so cool to me. But I think that I'm at a stage in my life where I kind of want to just settle down.
Yeah, I understand that. You can always go back to
But
visit.
I can always go visit.
Well, in closing, I want to say this. If we've got any Japanese people listening, this goes out to all the people of Japan, I have to say thank you, because my son and I had nothing short of a magical, most hospitable, meaningful, deep, very moving experience there. And the country is so delightful. The people are so lovely and so kind and so respectful and polite. And they've got a sense of real, I think, human understanding and connectedness. As even though they're reserved, they're very caring people, and they're not standoffish. They're reserved, but they're very deep. They're deep, I think, in their connectedness, and they are very gracious hosts when you visit their country. So, shout out to everybody in Japan, and thank you all so much, those of you who are tuning in today. I have new podcast episodes dropping every Friday. I am interviewing and chronicling the most colorful people I meet off the beaten path across the globe. I've got a mixture of guests, everyone from wine sommeliers to language experts, other color professionals, artists, entrepreneurs, travel influencers, digital nomads. I really do. It runs the gamut. I've got a great mix of guests in the lineup. So I hope that you will continue to tune in each week. And until next week, live in color. And thank you so much for joining. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Coloring My Way Across the Globe. I hope that you've enjoyed the conversation, and we would love to stay connected with you throughout the week. The best way to connect is by subscribing to our newsletter at www.lfbcolor.com. That's www.l as in Lauren, F as in Frank, B as in boy, color, COLOR.com. Also, you may find us on Instagram using the same handle, LFBcolor, for the latest stories, podcast guest profiles, travel photography, language learning diaries, and my own colorful art. Hope to see you there, friends. Thank you again.